Before we begin, I want to start with the definition of joy. What is joy? In earthly terms, joy, according to Webster's dictionary, is the emotion evoked by well being, success, or good fortune, or by the prospect of possessing what one desires, the expression or exhibition of such emotion, a state of happiness or felicity, a source or cause of delight. But when I read the definition, I'm going to be honest with y'all, I don't agree with Webster. I do not believe that joy has anything to do with happiness, and especially after I studied this story. I want to read some verses in the Bible that talk about joy. I want to talk with you all about the biblical definition of joy. Let's go to Nehemiah 8, verse 10. It says, "Do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." Here we have a verse in the Bible where it's talking about the joy of the Lord, but in the same phrase, we're also talking about grief. Then we find in Romans 15, verse 13, "Now the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, that ye may abound in hope through the power of the Holy Ghost." At first glance, this sounds like a positive text. But when you look at it, it's saying, may he give you hope in believing, that you may abound in hope. That means that whatever you want, there's lack. So now we have joy in a verse that's talking about lack. And then James 1 verse 2, "Consider it pure joy." This is one of my favorites. "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." Joy coupled with trials of many kinds and testing of your faith. Joy, to me, has nothing to do with happiness. The earthly definition and the biblical definition of joy do not match. So I came up with a new definition of joy. Y'all, let's go back to the story of Hagar, and then I'm going to tell you my new definition. Okay, Genesis 16. Now we're in verses 7. "The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, 'Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?' 'I'm running from my mistress Sarai,' she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, 'Go back to your mistress and submit to her.' The angel added, 'I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count.' The angel of the Lord also said to her, 'You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility towards all his brothers.' She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. 'You are the God who sees me.' For she said, 'I have now seen the one who sees me.' That is why the well was called Bir Lahai Roi. It is still there between Kadesh and Bered." So I actually listened to this chapter over and over and over again. I listened to it probably about 4 or 5 times. And as I listened to the chapter, every time I heard the word submit, I cringed. I didn't like the word. Let's go back to the verse. It says, "Then the angel of the Lord told her, 'Go back to your mistress and submit to her.'" You mean to tell me that God was telling her to go back into her situation, and there was no promise of it changing? She was to go back into a space where she was mistreated, where she was despised, and she was to figure out how to live in it. And this is where I came up with the new definition of joy. This is the definition according to Keisha. Joy is submitting to a given circumstance and finding the good in it, even when it is likely to remain the same. I'm going to say it one more time. Joy is submitting to a given circumstance and finding the good in it, even when it is likely to remain the same. This is another quote from the book Patriarchs and Prophets. Addressing her as Hagar, Sarai's maid, God reminded her of her position and her duty. He bade her return to thy mistress and submit thyself under her hands. Yet with the reproof there were mingled words of comfort. The Lord hath heard thy affliction. I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, and that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Hagar was mistreated. She was despised. She was rejected. She was unwanted, and God called her to go back. I want to pause here really quickly and be very clear that the situations that I'm talking about are situations that are unfavorable in daily life. If at any point you are in a situation where it is causing harm to you or someone else involved, please know that it is necessary to seek professional help. That is not the situation that I'm talking about here. But I am talking about the fact that sometimes life, as the young people say, sometimes life be lifing. And what I'm also saying is that when we are crying out to God in these circumstances, sometimes God calls us to submit to them. And he doesn't change a thing.